Okay, welcome to week 3, and this week we're going to be talking about scale and energy. And scale is about a wide range of different values of time and space, and we're going to see different processes that happen at these different scales. But, so for example, in a watershed you have things that happen at the whole watershed scale. You have processes that take place over many years, and that's very different than the scales that would happen just what happens in a little bit of the lake water or a little bit of the forest. And so you have to study those differently, and but yet you have to be able to integrate those all back together. So that's one example of how we use scale in environmental science. But the sort of precautionary note that I want to bring up today is that, and in the lecture, is that it's difficult for humans to see across different time scales. And so we sort of have blinders. We have these blinders, and we need to be able to work through that. And that's where this cognitive tool of explicitly looking for different scales and looking for the processes that happen at those scales can really be useful. So for example, even we have mental blockages against seeing certain types of processes that happen at scales. And I'm going to bring that up. But it's very fascinating that a human weakness shows up in these scientific observations. Okay, then we're going to talk about energy use and how much do we use and where does it come from, and we're going to compare those between different nations and different regions of the country, for example. And again, how do we normalize this? And this again an issue that relates to scale. Do we normalize it to per capita, that's the number of people, or against the economy of the country? Each of those gives sort of a different outlook on what that energy looks like. And all throughout this week, these lectures and the assignments, you're going to see illustrations of how people are trying to use innovative approaches to solve some of these energy problems. And one of the problems there is that because it's innovative, it's new, needs to be tested, and so we need to test those at a small scale, and hence this idea of smaller scale or appropriate scale technologies that meet the needs of individuals. But if you make a mistake, you can learn from your mistake and correct those and come up with better technologies. And so this idea of appropriate or smaller scale technologies is really key to being reversible and learn from mistakes. And overall, this week is going to be a good example of how we see different aspects of a problem by incorporating this idea of multiple perspectives. And in this case, it's going to be forcing ourselves to look at different scales.